Kiki, do you want to get the door, please? All right, yeah, I think everybody's here. All right, so I hope it records. We'll just have to wait and find out, won't we?
That's a beautiful picture.
Oh, thank you. I love it when you appreciate my, you know, I have nothing to do with it. I'm just the one that chose it. So I appreciate your appreciation. So welcome to HED Talks for a brand new series. And the series is Pirates. Yes, we're going to be talking about pirates today. And you're all familiar with pirates, right? There isn't anyone in this room that doesn't know all about pirates. Let's look at some of the stereotypes about pirates. Okay, what do we have here? What's this? Yeah, we've got the peg leg. All right, what's this?
Patch over the eye. Parrot.
We got a parrot. We've got. Well, I chose him for the patch over the eye because I just loved his expression. Yes, yes, Conrad, walking the plank, and then most of all,
Treasure.
yes, and not just treasure, but what? Buried treasure. That's what pirates had to do, right? They had to bury it and then come back for it later. And those are all of the things that we know about piracy and about pirates. We also have a pretty good idea of when we had this great age of the pirates, right? Who wants to take a guess?
We still have them.
We still have them. But it's not the great age of pirates. When is the great age of pirates?
1700s.
Is that what we tend to think of when we think of pirates? That far back, Edith says, that far back. It might surprise you to know when piracy really began as a real serious problem. Okay, are you ready? Piracy began as a problem in the 14th century BC.
Wow.
BC, in the 14th century BC. So just think about how long ago that is. And where did it arise? Where did it emerge? Well, in the most perfect spot on earth, the Mediterranean Sea. Right? I mean, take a look at this map. All right, here's the Mediterranean Sea. What do you see all throughout here?
A lot of shorelines.
Exactly, a lot of shorelines. It's an ideal situation for hitting the wealthy empires, correct? See where we are? And there's a lot of little coves where you can go in and you can hide. One of the greatest hiding spots for pirates back in this time was in Crete. Where's Effie?
I don't know.
Oh, she's all right? Okay. Because she never misses, so as long as she's all right.
She was at yoga this morning.
Okay, as long as she's okay. And back then, in those days, the ships looked like this. They're not very big. They're fast because they're sleek, they're slim, they're small, they're fast. There's some.
Sails.
They have big sails, John?
Yeah.
They have big sails. Here's some ancient Phoenician boats. Can you see how they would have a place to store the treasure? You see how thin and fast they must have been going, correct? So these are pretty good ships for, piracy. But how do we know? Is it just an assumption that they were doing this because of the time and the place? It isn't. It is not an assumption, and it's not because we have the most fantastic archaeological artifacts. I just can't even express how wonderful these are. These are called the Amana letters. All right, they're impressed, there's depressions on clay tablets, and there's hundreds of them. There's a whole library of them that have been discovered. And do you know what they're from? Do you know what they're about? These are diplomatic letters from one empire to another. So we've got all of these correspondence. These are from the British Museum. I got these ones from the British Museum. And they are from, for example, the Egyptian pharaoh. We have letters from Amenhotep. Do you remember who he is? He's the father of King Tut. That's how far back. That's how old these are. All right, so there are letters from the pharaohs of Egypt to the kings of all of the surrounding empires, and it would have included Babylonia and the Persian Empire. That's what all of these are about. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. And I'll bet you really would love to know what they say, right? Okay. I chose one. This is an excerpt from one of the letters, and this is from Amenhotep to the king of Anatolia. All right, you are reading right now a correspondence from an Egyptian pharaoh to the king of Anatolia. I'll let that sink in. That's pretty amazing. And what is he defending himself again? Well, against the king, the pharaoh of Egypt accused him of allowing piracy. So his ships were attacked by pirates in the Mediterranean Sea. And he's very upset about that, because some of his treasures were stolen. And so the king of Anatolia is defending himself. And he's saying, I haven't done this thing. And how could you accuse me of doing this thing? And then at the end of this letter, the Anatolian king actually says, even though your ancestors did it to mine. So he had to just throw that in. He needed to get that in a little bit. Yes?
Where is Anatolia?
I know it's kind of hard because all the names change, so I try to keep everything I know. It's the names of all the countries are changing constantly over the time span that we're talking about. But we would be going into Turkey and yeah. What?
I thought it was Turkey.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So if Amnon says it's Turkey, then I believe him. But they do, it changes constantly, so I usually try not to say it in a situation like this. But these hundreds of letters that they found, hundreds of correspondence, are from all of these great kingdoms that are emerging at that time, places that we've talked about, in Bible history and in other kinds of head talks. One of the best places for pirates to hide out is in Crete, and you can see why. Okay. Do you remember the Sea Peoples? We've talked about the Sea Peoples before, this mysterious peoples, and they attacked Egypt. They kept attacking Egypt. And one of the great things that we were discussing about the Sea Peoples is they're probably from the Aegean Sea. They keep attacking Egypt until Egypt finally gives them a little piece of land to the north in the land of Canaan. And it's the Sea Peoples who it is believed become famous in the Bible as what people? Does anyone remember? What?
The Philistines?
Yes, exactly. Yes, the Philistines. But the sea peoples are, they clearly, absolutely, without question, they're pirates. They're pirates. That's what they're doing. They are, they're attacking all of the Egyptian ships. They're coming on land. They're raiding the coastal lands in Egypt. They are, the sea peoples are absolutely pirates. And because of the damage and the devastation that they've caused, they are responsible for the collapse of the Bronze Age. So civilization goes into a decline before it raises up again. All right, so why piracy? Why piracy? It starts out pretty simple. You've got some hard-working fishermen. Is being a fisherman an easy job? It's really not an easy job at all. So they're working day and night, just working tirelessly for little gain. And does this elevate their status in society? It doesn't. It doesn't. So now they hear about opportunities to go raiding or go pirating. All right? And here is a bright spot in pirating. It's seasonal. All right? There's only certain times when the weather is in your favor where you can go pirating. You can't do it in certain times of the year. So it's a seasonal job. You can drop what you're doing and then come back to it once you're done. You know, if you live. If you live through it, then you can just go back to your family. You can go back to, you know, your farm. It's a seasonal position. But when you do go out, and if you do survive it, you come back, and what do you have?
Riches.
Yeah. You've made money. You're getting a little bit ahead. And the great appeal for this is, what are you now doing if you have a little bit of money?
Working your way up.
Yeah, the pirates are from in this class, right? And now they can build themselves up to, you know, here. They can't go here, but they can build themselves up. They can elevate their status in society. They can offer something better to their children. Another thing that they can do is, if they go on a boat, you know, somebody, and you join them in their raid, you're going to be able to maybe get a boat of your own, right? You get a boat of your own, and it doesn't have to be an expensive one, because we were just talking about that. A smaller ship is a better ship for pirating. Here I am giving you lessons on how to successfully pirate. I don't know why I'm doing that. But it's a better, much better ship, because you can come up along a bigger ship, and it would be a treasure ship. That's what you're going after. So you can sneak right up alongside of it, get onto it, attack, and then get your loot and get back down into your ship. And most of all, you can take your smaller ship and you can hide. You can get into waterways that are not accessible by larger ships. So the money that you get, that you're getting, does not require that you make a big purchase. You just need and want a smaller boat. So it was really something that was very viable for poorer people to do. And what could be the other, if you got your own ship and you go out pirating, what else would be maybe perhaps the greatest benefit of all?
It's all free money.
You're not working for anybody, right?
No taxes.
No taxes. Yeah. I mean, it is 100, you've got no boss. It's 100% profit. So you can see how some people would really think that it's worth the risk, because it is dangerous. You could die. But it would be worth the risk because you reap the benefits, and that makes it it makes it very appealing for people. It becomes so appealing that in the Mediterranean Sea, it is a big issue. All right? In the Mediterranean Sea, now we're coming up, we're going into the time of the Romans. And there's such an issue with piracy in the Mediterranean Sea, so much so that, does everybody remember what happened to Julius Caesar?
Yes, yeah.
What? No, before that.
Oh, before that.
That's the end of his story. Yeah, before he was murdered by his friends, he was kidnapped by pirates. Do you remember hearing about that?
No.
Yeah, Julius Caesar was kidnapped by pirates. So now, if the dictator of Rome has been kidnapped by pirates, you think now's probably the time to do something about them, right? That would bring down some retribution on pirates? Yeah. All right, and so that's what happens. It is Octavian who has a crackdown on piracy, and he takes all these Aleutian ships and pirates into his ownership. So what's the big deal about that? Well, let's look at the Aleutian ships. Look at those. Not bad, right? All right, so these are pirate ships, but what else could they be?
They could be a navy.
Exactly, Edith. It could be a navy ships because of the oarsmen, so they can ram. These are probably very fast, and they can ram and they can attack other naval ships. Well, we know what happened at this point in history, right? We've got Octavian, who later becomes Augustus, and who does he go up against?
Mark Anthony.
Mark Antony, right? Remember this story? You all remember this story, right? And there's the final battle. It happens in September of 31 BC. And there's a showdown between Octavian and Antony. And whose navy wins? What?
Octavian?
Octavian, yes. Octavian's navy wins. What is Octavian using in his navy?
Pirate ships.
He's using the pirate ships. Exactly, Edith. He's using the pirates. I'm sure they didn't have, he captured them. I'm sure didn't have a choice to fight with him, but he had commandeered all of their ships. And so Octavian, who becomes Augustus, defeats Mark Antony and Cleopatra. You all remember this story, right? And he's using pirate ships to win this battle, which does what? The result of this battle is the end of the Roman Republic.
Wow.
Yes, the result of this battle, because he has lost, they have lost, right? Octavian becomes Augustus, and then there's Caesar Augustus, and then this is the final battle in the loss of the Roman Republic. And pirates have a role that they've played in this part of history. Okay, there's more. We'll keep going. What emerges after this is something horrible, but we're all well aware of it. Pirates become involved with the slave trade. All right? We've got the Roman Empire building up. We've got other huge kingdoms, and there is quite a demand for slaves. And so slave trade is becoming increasingly more and more in need. And so pirates are stealing people of all colors, stealing them, forcing them onto their ships, and then taking them to the countries that will buy the slaves. This is a sketch of a slave ship.
Wow.
I know, it is. So this is where they're just, I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. They're just utilizing the space to store as many human beings as they possibly can. It's just incredible. So slave trade was a big, huge thing for the pirates, but then something else happened. Does anyone want to take a guess?
Piracy?
Well, we've been talking about piracy. Now it's been going on for over 1,000 years. Yeah, it's been going on for 1,000 years. So slaves was the big draw for them to sell. I mean, if you're a pirate, you're not going to have a business unless there's something to steal.
Is this when rum comes into it?
What's that?
Is this when rum comes into it?
Is this when Pat's very interested in the rum?
Yeah.
I think rum's probably always been in it.
Okay.
Yeah, or some sort of drink, whiskey or something. I think there's probably always been some kind of alcohol involved in it. Okay, you need something to steal, John, I guess that's what I'm saying. So they needed to have something to steal. At first, it was the trade where they were in the Mediterranean Sea, all the different trade. All right, then it was slaves was the big thing. The next big thing that's happening in the 15th century is the discovery of the New World. The discovery of the New World. Now, how many of you have heard the legend of El Dorado? Has everybody heard the legend of El Dorado?
No.
Yeah, I've heard something about it.
You've heard something about it? All right, well, if you're not sure, the legend of El Dorado is that in South America, there is a lost city made entirely of gold. It's a golden city. And so what I'm going to show for you right now is an explanation of what happened there with the story and the myth of El Dorado.
This lost city is said to be found somewhere deep in the rainforests of South America. Adventurers from across the world have spent centuries looking for it. The story of the lost golden city was first made popular by European explorers. Their story of El Dorado promises a wealthy paradise lost to time, a locale rich in minerals, a land ripe for the taking. However, this golden land of promise remains to be found. So just what was the city of El Dorado? A myth? A reality? Or a bit of both? Today, we'll bring the city to life for you with our animation and show just what El Dorado may have been like. El Dorado, an animated journey. The lost city of gold. This South American legend has eluded treasure hunters for centuries. Yet the El Dorado story wasn't always about a place. It began as the story of a man. El Rey Dorado, the Golden King. Legend has it that El Dorado was a very wealthy ruler who centuries ago governed an area near modern-day Bogota City in Colombia. This king was so rich that during festivals, he would cover his entire body in golden dust. And at the end of each day, El Dorado was said to travel with his people to a lake for a special cleansing ritual. There, he would take a raft out and dive in. El Dorada's swim in the lake would wash away the gold dust while his people threw all sorts of golden treasures and jewels into the lake. This legend of the Golden King comes from a real tribe who lived in Colombia for over 1,000 years. And there's more truth to their El Dorado than you may realize. The El Dorado Ritual. Long before the Europeans came to the Americas, the land was home to many different civilizations. One of these indigenous groups were the Muisca. The legend of the Golden Man comes from one of their ancient rituals. Whenever the chief of a tribe passed away, the Muisca would begin a rite that would see the deceased's nephew succeeded. After some time, they would lather the heir's skin in gold and make offerings to the gods by throwing treasures into Lake Guatavita in central Colombia. The heir would then sail into the center of the lake with 4 priests and 4 burning fires, sending incense skywards. Ashore, the crowd would be celebrating and making further offerings to the gods. But all would fall silent after a priest raised a flag to signal that their new chief was here. And people would shout from the shore to pledge their allegiance. The Muisca worshipped gold not for its monetary value, but for its spiritual power. It is thought that gold shared a connection with the gods. Offerings of the metal are believed to have brought balance and peace to society. Because of this, archaeologists now believe the Muisca produced vast quantities of gold, and that was a sight likely to stun any 16th century European explorer visiting these lands for the first time. The mythical lost city of gold. So if El Dorado was a man, then where did the myth of the lost golden city come from? El Dorado has served as the right whale for many different treasure hunters over the centuries. Legend has it that El Dorado was a place brimming with riches and treasures, the likes of which the world had never seen. Everything from the city walkways to the buildings, temples, and homes were made from solid gold. El Dorado was said to be an incomprehensibly wealthy place where people lived a perfect life. El Dorado was a golden utopia, and many Europeans wanted it for themselves. However, all, except a few, found nothing. The search for El Dorado. The year is 1537. The Spanish conquistador Jimenez de Quesada and his army of 900 soldiers are searching for a route to Peru. Suddenly, word of a golden city reaches them, so Quesada changes their destination. They trek deeper and deeper into the South American wilderness. Hundreds die along the way. Until finally, they happen upon a sight that left them stunned. What they found wasn't El Dorado, but the gold works of the Muisca tribe. These golden carvings were new and exotic to the conquistadors. What likely startled them even more was the sheer abundance of gold on site. The Muisca, like other South American indigenous tribes, were a gold-working culture. As we explained earlier, gold, for them, was not about monetary value, but a spiritual connection to the gods. The Spanish, however, felt differently and plundered the tribe's ancient treasures. Over the following years, Spain conquered the tribe's lands, but still none could find El Dorado. Yet that didn't stop countless others from searching for it over the years. Was El Dorado real? For now, most of the evidence suggests El Dorado was nothing more than a story of a golden man, a tale that became a myth of a lost golden city, a legend that became the white whale of European treasure hunters. What we do know is that the legend of El Dorado continues to hold a special place in the hearts and minds of people across the world, and will continue to do so. But if there's anything to learn from the El Dorado story, it is this. If something's too good to be true, then it probably is. Europeans spent centuries in their quest for El Dorado, and hurt many, many people in the process, all for gold, and in later years, nothing more than a few trinkets. Was El Dorado real? If it was, where do you think it was located? Is there something we missed? Are ancient civilizations beyond the understanding of current science?
Okay, so now you know the whole story of El Dorado. And do you know that that lake where the king would jump into and shed all of the gold dust and people would throw gold objects into it? The government now had to ban, they don't let anybody near it anymore because people, until the last few decades, would go to that river and try to drain it and try to find gold in that river. So they had to do something about it. But yes, El Dorado is a legend. Probably happened through mistranslation, misunderstanding between the Spanish conquistadors and the native peoples. So El Dorado, it seems, was a man and not a city. But that didn't stop lots and lots and lots of expeditions by the Spanish into Central and South America. Well, they might not have found El Dorado, but what did they find?
A new world.
A new world. They found a lot of gold, a lot of treasure, a lot of natural resources. And so Spain is doing what? Spain is sending their ships, they're harvesting all of these natural resources. And then what are they doing with them? Then they have to take them back, right? They have to take them back. They have to go back to Spain. And how are they going back to Spain? In treasure fleets.
And pirates.
And
Can't have
they
that pirate.
hired the pirates to protect them.
They're just a target.
They are a huge target. Yes, they are taking it back in treasure fleets. Now here's the Spanish. So King Philip is ruling at this particular time, and here comes his worst nightmare. Have you ever heard of Sir Francis Drake?
Yeah.
All right, so Sir Francis Drake, he happens to be in business with his cousin. This is a cousin of his. All right, John Hawkins and Francis Drake go into business. And what they want to do is get a ship. They're going into the slave trade, because now they're very sure that they're going to need slaves. The Spanish will need slaves in the New World because of all the work that has to be done there. So they have a fleet, there's 6 ships, and they have all the slaves. They go to Central America, and they think that they're going to make a lot of money, but what do the Spanish do when they see them coming? They open fire. They open fire on them. This business is not condoned. They don't have a right. They don't have a problem with slavery. It's just that they don't have a right to make these sales as Englishmen, as British. So they open fire on them. Francis Drake, at this point, he panics, and he is in command of one of the ships, and he takes off, leaving Hawkins by himself to fight this battle by himself. Well, they all survive, but Drake comes away from this with a terrible reputation. He is called a coward. He's laughed at by the Spanish. Of course, he's lost his money. He lost his business. So he's lost his business, and he's lost his reputation. So now he becomes furious and hates all things Spanish. And he takes that ship, and it is his life's ambition to pirate and raid all of these Spanish treasure ships as they're traipsing back and forth across the Atlantic Ocean. All right, so King Philip is not happy about this, right? So he's going to impose a sentence on pirates. They were pretty much getting away with it. But now he's going to be hanging them. And he hangs them on the shorelines so that when pirate ships come in, they see this as a warning. They would tar the pirates to preserve the body so that they would stay up there. And so that's what King Philip is doing. Now there's somebody else that comes into play here. Who's this? Queen Elizabeth. Yes, you recognize Queen Elizabeth. Now, do you think that she has any kind of an interest in this little battle that's going on? Well, she does, all right? Not the least of which is the fact that she is a what?
Protestant?
She is the Protestant monarch, and King Philip is decidedly what? Catholic, exactly. Not to mention that her father, who was her father? Yeah, he left her in a bad economic condition. He left the country in a bad economic condition. Spain is much more powerful. Spain is very wealthy because of the discovery of the New World and all the wealth that they're bringing back from there. So they're a very serious threat to England. Spain wants to conquer England and force them to become Catholic again, which they had just been under Queen Mary, her sister. So they want that again. And who did he marry? Henry, the first one.
Oh, Catherine of Aragon.
Catherine of Aragon is of what nationality? Spanish. All right, so you see that there's some tension here. You see that there's some animosity here. A lot of it. So Queen Elizabeth decides that what she's going to do is something very creative. All right? She's going to just transform piracy to privateer just with the stroke of a pen. She decides that she's going to give letters of marque, is what they're called, but it's a license. And what she's saying is, it is your patriotic duty to attack and retrieve any wealth of an enemy. So she is giving license to pirates. So what does Drake become? He becomes a privateer. Yes, he becomes a privateer. All right, so now, yes, a pirate is a criminal, but a privateer is a patriot. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's just such a huge difference here, yes.
It sounds like today.
Yes.
He's running errands.
He's running errands for the Queen. Exactly, John. Yes, these are the differences between a pirate who is a criminal and the privateer who's doing the same thing, but legally. She's making it legal. And it isn't just Drake. She's got all kinds of them. They're all out there. And they're attacking all of these Spanish treasure fleets. And what are they coming back to England with? Yeah, a lot of wealth. And this actually bails out England's economy that Henry VIII had left them in. It bails them out. Privateering bails out that country's economy. Isn't that incredible? It's incredible. When you stop and think, I had no idea how much pirates played a role in history. It's really kind of amazing. Drake is also known for the fact that his loathing for Spain was so intense that what he decided to do, even though it was incredibly dangerous, was he decided that he was going to sail down South America. He actually goes right through in here. He navigates this narrow canal, and he comes up into the Pacific Ocean. And it's unprotected. So now Spain has come through, and they've developed all kinds of colonies on the west coast, but now Drake has come through with his pirates, and he can attack all along here. Why? Because there's absolutely no defense. They never thought in a million years that anybody would be able to get through on the other side, but Drake does it, and he becomes the first Englishman to ever travel around the world. He circumvents the globe. He's the first Englishman to have done that. So when he returns home, what does Elizabeth do? She knights him. And guess what Philip had to say about that? The sword she knighted him with should have cut off his head. That's how he felt about it. Now, his story doesn't end. You'd think that that would be pretty good, right? No, he's got just a little bit more in him. We know about the Spanish Armada, correct? All right, so now Spain is going to go to war with England, and they're the favorite to win. They're the wealthy nation. They've got quite a naval force, and Elizabeth needs her best people. Well, she puts Drake second in command, and as second in command, it's his job to be in charge, leading a certain number of ships behind him. And at night, the way you do that is you hang a lantern. You put a lantern at the back so that the ships behind you can see and follow you. That was Drake's job. That was what he was supposed to be doing. Except one night, the lantern mysteriously goes out. No one can find Drake. Where is he? Where is he? What are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go? And they were just kind of hung there and lost and without any kind of navigation. Come morning, they discover, because Drake just says it like it is, where was he? Well, he had heard that the Rosario, the Spanish ship, the Rosario was nearby. And so he had to go pay it a visit. You know why? It was the payroll ship. It had the Spanish soldiers' payroll. So Drake leaves his command, just for a few hours, just to go over to the Rosario and relieve them of their payroll. And then he gets right back in line as commander, and guess who wins that battle? The English. Yep, the English win that battle. So what ultimately happens to Drake? Well, he decides to, one more trip. He goes to San Juan. He's in a battle. He does get wounded, but he doesn't die from that. He dies from dysentery a few weeks later, and he has asked that he be buried in full armor and that he be buried at sea. So he is buried in a lead-lined coffin, and he's tossed overboard and out to sea. But he has a younger cousin. Hawkins was his older cousin, but he's got a younger cousin. Does anybody know who the younger cousin is? Yeah, it's all in the family. Yeah, so just all in the family. Now, he's a learned from his cousin, Drake. So Raleigh is more of a, he's not really a, an outdoorsy, seafaring kind of a guy. He is more of an intellectual. And so he wants to go for the queen's attention by lavishing her with these flirtations. And he's known for writing her poetry and pursuing her romantically. Well, he succeeds. He's a young man, and she's in her 40s now. She's very flattered. He's also over 6 feet tall, which was quite unusual at the time, and he's a very good-looking man. So she is flattered, and he becomes the queen's favorite. And as the queen's favorite, she's giving him lands. Now, he handles the lands very well, and he gets a lot of money. He's really moving up. He's quite wealthy. And he doesn't make trips over to the New World, but he sponsors these trips. He's paying for them. All right, so he sends colonists, and they're all men in the first one. And so this is the first English colony. He's in North Carolina, but this one fails. So he waits a little bit, and then he goes back and he makes another attempt at it, and this time he sends women, because he thinks, women and men, they need the women there to make the colony go, but guess what happens to that colony too? Another fail. It's another fail. But Sir Walter Raleigh is known for exporting back to England some pretty popular products, and this is probably the most famous one. Tobacco, yes. And there's this story about how Sir Walter Raleigh was in a pub, and one of his servants comes rushing over with a pitcher of beer and dumps a pitcher of beer over his head. And he did that because he thought he was on fire. But really what was happening was he was smoking tobacco, but it wasn't anything that he was in the pub enjoying a cigarette or a pipe or something, but the servant just saw plumes of smoke coming, so he comes running over, and all he had was beer, so he dumps a whole pitcher of beer over his head. But he doesn't stay in the queen's favor for too long, because, he falls in love with a woman his own age. He does. He falls in love with a woman his own age, and she's somebody from the court. If that's the case, they need permission from the queen. But they're not going to go to the queen, because he's supposed to be infatuated with her, so she's probably not going to say yes. So they just go get married anyway. So the queen's not very happy about this at all, and he falls out of favor, and he needs to do something to get back into her favor. It has to be something grand and spectacular. So what does he decide to do? He approaches Queen Elizabeth and tells her that he knows where El Dorado is. And that he's going to go on an expedition, and that he's going to bring back wealth that is beyond anybody's imagination. So he does. He goes out, and we all know what happens. He doesn't find El Dorado, because it isn't a city, it's a man. And so he is unsuccessful, and when he goes back, he knows that he isn't going to gain favor. So what does he decide to do? He decides, well, maybe I should just, switch lanes right now and go work for King Philip of Spain.
Oh, dear.
And his little plot, he's gonna be a spy. He offers to be a spy to Spain, because he's the queen's favorite. This is everything he's saying, even though she would not allow him in her inner circle. He was just amusing. But he was never going to get beyond that. Well, she discovers that, and he is tried for treason. And long story short,
But I'm the same.
They used that sword to cut his head off.
actually, they did, that was Drake. But, so ultimately what happens is, she dies, King James comes to the throne, all right? Sir Walter Raleigh is imprisoned for many years until he is ultimately executed, and he is,
Oh, he was executed.
yeah, he was executed, and he decides, he was in his 60s at that point, and he decides that you can say, you can have a few last words. He talked for 45 minutes. He spoke for 45 minutes before he was executed. Okay, so now that's going to bring us up into the time we think of, yes? So now we're starting next week, we're going to be talking about, you know, Blackbeard and all of these well-known pirates. We just had to get to the right place and the right time. And before we go into that period of time, you all know what this is, right? The Jolly Roger flag, correct. So we think of, this is another one of the stereotypes, we think of the pirate in this 16th, 17th, 18th century time period as flying this flag. There's actually many different kinds of pirate flags, and here's a sample of a few flags. They didn't all have the same thing. Remember, they're working for themselves. And here is some more of the more popular flags. And we're going to talk about these people. These are the people that we're going to be discussing in the next few weeks. And here's some more. All right, so there are all different kinds of pirate flags, and there's one pirate flag that I think you might really be interested in seeing. It looks like this.
Really?
Yes, and this is the flag of the pirate.
John Paul.
Yes, John Paul Jones, known for, fought in the Revolutionary War, known for saying, "I have not yet begun to fight," was a pirate. And this is his pirate flag. Okay, all right, so next week, as I say, we're going to be talking about Blackbeard and the other pirates that you probably heard tales of, you know, Treasure Island, where did that come from? Are there any women pirates? And what are their stories? Of course there are, because I wouldn't bring it up if there weren't. And I'm going to be, and I'll tell you their stories too. So I hope I have an awful lot of surprises for you coming up in the next few weeks. And I thank you for coming today.
We were calling you a pirate.